Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, April 16th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 523 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And we are just 8 days away from the 2025 NFL draft, just 8 days from finding out what the New York Jets and this new regime do to continue to build and round out this roster. And today, I wanted to get into a couple draft topics. We're going to break down NFL draft analyst Mel Kiper and Field Yates' latest 3-round mock draft. My thoughts on each of those picks, including one surprising pick in the 3rd round that I wanted to break down and why I'm personally not a huge fan of it. So we'll get to that here to open up the show. And I also want to break down some contract stuff. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, both reported to offseason workouts. Contract extensions coming soon for both of those guys. We'll touch upon that a little bit later on here in the program. As always, though, before we begin, we've got to get into our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you want any of the hottest tickets in sports or entertainment, check them out. Use code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase and get yourself out to some awesome events. And of course, our friends over at Huga House. If you want any of their original collections or new collection of hats and sweatshirts, check them out. Code BUBS for 15% off any purchase and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So here we go, episode 523. Thank you as always for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Just 8 days away. I cannot wait. Draft season is in full swing, and we're right on the doorstep of another NFL draft 8 days from now. Tomorrow, of course, will officially mark a week. And as we kind of head into crunch time right now, you got all these different mock drafts, all of these final predictions, final analysis on all of these different prospects and all these teams and the directions that everybody could go in here when the draft eventually takes place. And the other day, Field Yates and Mel Kiper, 2 lead NFL draft analysts for ESPN, revealed a joint 3-round mock draft. And the Jets, of course, picked number 7, 42, and their 3rd round, 73rd overall pick were included. Yates picked the 7th pick. Mel Kiper had the 2nd round pick, and then Yates picked their 3rd round pick. And I wanted to break it down and explain some of these picks. Really the 3rd round pick specifically that I wanted to get into. So the first 2 picks were kind of obvious, kind of expected. I think many Jet fans, we've seen a lot of this combination. And I think the Jets could potentially find themselves in a position where they take both of these guys on the first 2 days. And that is 7th overall in this mock draft. They take Armand Membou. It feels like the consensus, it's going to be either Membou or Tyler Warren. If I had to predict right now, as we sit 8 days away, I think it's going to be Armand Membou. That would be my prediction. I don't think you can go wrong with either Membou or Warren. I could see a world where maybe Mason Graham, if he's there at 7, Jets have had multiple visits with him. I could see a world where he could be the pick. but I think it's probably going to be Membu or Warren. So that's the first round pick. No real surprise. We've spent a ton of time on Membu. Second round pick, Elijah Arroyo. Another guy we spent some time on. Arroyo, you can go in this spot. You could go Mason Taylor. It feels like if the Jets don't go tight end here in the first round, you're probably looking at maybe second round pick tight end. If not, that third round pick tight end. And that's where you find your Arroyos, your Mason Taylors. I personally prefer Taylor a little bit more over Arroyo. I think he projects a little bit more as a more complete tight end with a little bit of a higher upside. Arroyo's got some injury history, only really had one very good season in college, and is more of your bigger slot. I think Taylor projects a little bit better as an all-around blocking and receiving tight end. But Arroyo, if the Jets like him, you could take him there. Terrence Ferguson, ton of other guys. Either way, whatever they do day one is going to be very dependent on what happens in the next 2 days. If you take the offensive tackle, as a Jet fan, you can get on board with them going tight end, wide receiver day 2 with that second round pick, first day 2 pick rather. If they go tight end and Tyler Warren, you can understand Ozzie Trapilo, any of those guys on day 2 to fill out offensive tackle and still potentially find a weapon, wide receiver, tight end, however they approach that. So I don't have any issues with the way they go their first 2 picks. However, what I do find a little bit surprising in this mock draft, and something that I personally wouldn't love, is they go edge rusher. So Field Yates made the third round 73rd overall pick, and he selected Princely Umanmielen. He's 6'4", 244 pounds, senior, 5 seasons in college football, 4 with Florida and 1 with Ole Miss. A very good prospect, and we'll break down some of his strengths, some of his weaknesses, but I don't love the pick just because in this point in the draft for the Jets, right, you have your offensive tackle, you have your tight end. I would prefer in this spot, third round, you got to find another weapon. I think a wide receiver is a bigger need than edge rusher here. I think defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman is a bigger need here. I also would say safety is a bigger need in this spot. And another reason I don't love this pick, and this is all mock drafts, this is all just projecting, but the pick after the New York Jets here was Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Now, I think there's a chance Tyleik Williams doesn't fall to the round 3, but in a world where he does and the Jets can get him at 73, I think that's great value. I would not pass up Tyleik Williams, an interior defensive lineman who plays with a very high level of nastiness and physicality, very good against the run, and has some good pass rushing traits. To me, fits the billing of an Aaron Glenn player. I would take him because you need interior defensive line help way more than you need edge depth, or edge help, rather. They could use some edge depth, right? Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, outside of those 2 guys, you have a lot of questions. But I think you're looking more edge depth day 3. I don't want to see a day 1 or day 2 pick, in my opinion, used on an edge rusher when a safety, in my eyes, is a bigger need. Interior defensive line's a bigger need. Wide receiver's a bigger need. Tight end, offensive tackle, obviously bigger needs. In a world where the Jets went defensive tackle, tight end, first 2 picks, I don't want to see an edge there. You got to go get a tight end or wide receiver in that, or offensive tackle in that spot. If you go DT, wide receiver, you got to get tight end, OT, whatever. You can think of all the different scenarios. So that's why I wouldn't love this pick. I would stay away. I think you can find a quality depth edge rusher in day 3. You've got to find other weapons here. You've got to fill out other holes here, especially if Tyleik Williams is on the board. Interior defensive line is a significantly greater need than your edge rusher. And Tyleik Williams, I think, fits perfectly next to Quinnen Williams and fits a massive hole in this Jets defense. They can't stop the run. He can stop the run. So Umanmielen, rather, as a prospect, does project well for whatever team does select him. He is a very high-level pass rusher that can get home to the quarterback. 10.5 sacks, 37 total tackles, 16 quarterback hits, 28 quarterback hurries, 14 tackles for loss in 2024. He had 25.5 sacks in his career. in those 5 years, all in the SEC. So he played in some of the top level of college football and was able to consistently get home to the quarterback. A very good pass rusher. Has some elite pass rushing traits. But I just think need-wise wouldn't be the right pick, in my opinion, at this point for the Jets. 91.1 overall Pro Football Focus grade, 91.5 pass rush grade. Can struggle a bit against the run despite his 78.7 run defense grade and his 8.6% run stop rate. Statistically, some of his run defense metrics grade out a lot better than what he actually shows on tape in the eye test. I would say that the numbers show he's a little bit more of a better run defender than he actually is. But it doesn't take away from what he's able to do as a pass rusher. His spin move, he's got an excellent burst off a snap, athletic, size and length, all are strengths to his game. Some of his weaknesses, hand usage, overall technique, more of a finesse player than physicality. I kind of look at Princely Umanmielen here as kind of a guy that is sort of raw, athletic, little long, can, spin move, can do finesse things really well and get to the quarterback and a high sack player, but needs some work when it comes to physicality, toughness, needs some work, just overall technique. He's got a lot of raw talent, but needs some work to kind of mold him into more of an all-around player. And I'm not denying the fact that the Jets could come away here with an edge rusher to put depth behind Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, especially Jermaine Johnson, a guy who's coming off a torn Achilles. Because right now, the edge depth, could use some work. But I think you want to look for that guy personally day number 3. If you tell me that the Jets walk away in the first 2 days with a second-round tight end as your only real weapon, and then an edge rusher and an offensive tackle, I don't love that. I would prefer you go tackle, tight end, and then maybe wide receiver. Or if you want to address the defense, then go interior defensive line. I just think there's bigger needs in this spot, especially a guy like Tyleik Williams, if he's there, that fits your team and fits a bigger hole than an edge rusher would in this spot. So, everybody, maybe the Jets view it differently, but that's the way I view it personally. So that's their 3-round mock draft. We've talked, of course, a lot about Membu and Warren and that debate. And I'll, in the coming days here, really break down the scenarios of different scenarios for the Jets and what happens they go tackle, what happens they go tight end, what happens they go wide receiver, first round trade back scenario, defensive tackle scenario, whatever. Because I think tons of different scenarios, and ultimately what they do with that 7th overall pick is going to have a lot, will dictate a lot on what they do in days 2 and day 3, specifically day 2, on how they fill out the other various holes in this offense with still premium picks inside the top 100. So we'll get to that. But I wanted to move on here quickly as well to just one other note today. Connor Hughes reported, Jets also on their official Twitter page posted a picture actually of Sauce doing some work today. But Sauce and Garrett Wilson both are at off-season workouts. So here was Connor Hughes on Sauce. Jets cornerback Sauce Gardner is in attendance for the off-season program. Noteworthy, most in his situation would stay away until they get a new deal. Gardner continuing to show his commitment to the team. These are guys you invest in. Connor Hughes also had this to say about Garrett Wilson. Also in attendance, wide receiver Garrett Wilson. He's eligible for a contract too. Few would fault either for skipping as they look for new deal. They're both here. Think that says a lot. Again, build around guys like that. It's a positive that both of them are there. You would have liked to seen ultimately, right, the Jets in a perfect world extend, if they wanted to extend these guys, do it before some of these other extensions got handed out, especially in Sauce's case, before Derek Stingley reset the market, be a little bit earlier as later, but they have waited. And the more and more as the days go by and you see both of them at off-season programs, and just because they're at the off-season program doesn't mean that they're 100% going to get a contract extension. But Connor Hughes does make a point. right? They could easily hold out, especially in Garrett Wilson's case. He has obviously expressed his frustrations. He could easily sit out and say, look, I'm not coming until I get a contract extension. I've been here as a key contributor. You look at this roster right now, like outside of me, there's nobody here. You need me. So he could really put himself in that spot to sit out and wait to get paid. But like seeing them both there is a positive. And I do think that something will get done. I do. I think if I had to predict, both of these guys will get extended. Whether it's after the draft, whether it's during training camp, whether it's kind of that dead period that we'll get from June to August, June to July, rather, that 40 days in between OTAs and the mandatory mini camp, and in the 40 days between that and training camp starting up in late July. I think something could easily happen in there. I could see something happening right after the draft, where draft's done, all that stuff, then they get something done. But I think at this point, you're going to see something get done. And I think you could probably safely say with both players. For a while there, I did think there was a chance where maybe they wanted to wait on Sauce, extend Garrett, keep him around, keep him happy. That was one of the biggest factors, is Garrett, out of the two of them, was the one that was maybe a little unhappy. Maybe even that, though, was maybe a little bit more blown out of proportion than actually reality. But you could see a world Sauce coming off a little bit down year if Aaron Glenn wanted a year to work with him to see where he was at. But in that same situation, his value would only go up. You'd have to pay him more. So I could see a world where they get both these contracts done now, lock both these players up, and you want that to happen. You want to lock up your own guys. I mean, how many years have the New York Jets let good young talent go away, or just not even have good young talent to lock up? Now they have good young talent to lock up. You want them to do that. You want them to keep these players around, especially guys of those two caliber players at two big-time positions, wide receiver one and cornerback one. Those are not easy things to find. And they're two blue-chip pieces. They're building blocks for the future. You want those guys and guys of those character to stick around for a long time. Forever, the Jets have always been late. Forever, the Jets have never been ahead and extended their own. They've never been on top of it. For once, it'd be nice to see them lock them up, keep them here. Two great players, keep them around, and make them Jets for life. Two guys that, especially in Sauce's case too, has made it very clear he wants to be here long term. And hopefully can finally see some winning with Aaron Glenn at the helm here, which only time will tell. So that's the update on Sauce and Garrett. Just wanted to deliver a couple comments. Thought that was interesting today, seeing both out there, and feels like extensions will get done. After the draft, into the summer, week one, I think you'll see Sauce and Garrett have new extensions sometime between now and then. So let me know what you think in the comments section down below. What is your thoughts on Field Yates and Mel Kiper's 3-round NFL mock draft? What were your thoughts on the 3 picks they made for the New York Jets? Same boat as me. Don't love the edge rusher at pick 73. Prefer interior defensive line. Prefer some receiver help. Prefer some safety help. I certainly would over an edge rusher. So let me know what you think. Thoughts on that, and thoughts on Sauce and Garrett. Extensions coming soon. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. We'll have a lot more content coming your way. Until next time, Jets. Jets.